Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel Colonati. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Good, the Bad, and What Got Better in the Chronicles of Amber by Roger Zelazny. The Chronicles of Amber is a 10-book fantasy series written by Zelazny between 1970 and 1992. The stories revolve around a world called Amber, which is the one true reality of which all other worlds, including Earth, are shadows. There is a pattern in Amber which symbolizes or creates order, and those with the blood of the royal family of Amber can walk this pattern and gain the ability to manipulate or travel through the shadow worlds. The first 5 books were published from 1970 to 1978 and are the story of Corwin, a prince of Amber who awakens one day on Earth with amnesia, and when he makes it back to Amber, he discovers his father, King Oberon, has disappeared and all of his children, Corwin's siblings, are fighting for the throne. Corwin, of course, wants the throne for himself, but along the way he must deal with a danger that is threatening the very existence of Amber and the orderly universe. And these first 5 books are called the Corwin Cycle. The second half of the series, the final 5 Merlin Cycle books, were published from 1985 to 1992 and are the story of Merlin, who is Corwin's son. Years after the events of the Corwin Cycle, Merlin is also living on Earth but is headed home to Amber as soon as he can finally uncover who has been trying to annually assassinate him on his birthday. He finds his ex-girlfriend dead at the claws of a shadow beast and then follows a long trail of vendettas, complicated family relationships, and more to an ultimate showdown between order and chaos and Merlin's role in that balance. I first read the Amber Chronicles when I was 13 and 14 years old. It's been more than a decade since I read them for the first time, and back around February of 2015 I decided to reread all the books to see whether they lived up to my nostalgia-tinged memories. And now that I have finished my reread, here are my thoughts about the series overall, and I'm going to organize this into the things that I enjoyed, the things that disappointed me, and the things that got better as the series progressed. I have to say that the best thing about the series, what I enjoyed most as a kid and what I still enjoyed most as an adult, is the world building. The concept of Amber itself, its shadows, the trump cards that the characters use to communicate and transport themselves around with. These are just classic ideas that captured my imagination all over again. I especially appreciated the world building as it became more complex in the second half of the series. In the Merlin books, you get just more details about how the pattern works, how the Logos works, the complications that the new third pattern introduce. It just became more. There's a bit more to sink your teeth into. Also, the stories in the Corwin and Merlin cycles are about this great idea, this classic idea of how order can be imposed on chaos, how order can become chaos, and the balance that needs to be struck between these two. It's a theme that I think has Zelazny written all over it, and I really enjoyed it. I don't remember really appreciating the order-chaos pattern Logos tug of war underlying all of these stories as a kid, but as an adult, that is totally what I was paying more attention to rather than the vendettas, the family politics, the personal adventures. This idea is what really drew me into rereading these books. As far as characters go, I really did enjoy the sarcastic humor of characters like Corwin and Merlin. They do have some really great lines in the story. I think I enjoyed Corwin a little bit more, but they both have these sort of swashbuckling, go-it-alone type of personalities that I did enjoy, but also I could be a little bit frustrated by. But by far, my favorite character in the entire series isn't Corwin, it isn't Merlin, it is Mander. Mander is the bomb. Like most characters, I can't tell if he was meant to be a good guy or a bad guy. I don't think it really matters. He was super awesome in Sign of Chaos. He's just this badass Courts of Chaos sorcerer. He's doing his stuff. He's got this character description that still makes me swoon a little bit. What can I say? I really like Mander. But there were also some things that disappointed me throughout the entire series, and the one real disappointment was the writing. I have read other works by Zelazny where I was very much impressed by his writing skills, even if that writing was weird or experimental, and works like Creatures of Light and Darkness, I still felt that he had writing skills. But the writing in Amber was a big letdown. It felt thin or flat most of the time. There were strange pacing problems in the Corwin Cycle, probably because it was serialized. The pacing got better in the Merlin Cycle. There were actually some really great cliffhangers for a couple of books, but there were just times where you thought, why are we stopping here? Why? This is not a logical stopping point. Or things would feel very rushed or very dragged out much longer than they needed to be. A lot of the dialogue throughout the entire series felt relatively uninspired, and there were some tone consistency problems where it felt like Zelazny wasn't switching tones appropriately. It was just all very kind of monotonous. And there are points at which he is purposefully combining archaic language with like modern day slang and colloquialisms for an effect, and that leads to some interesting things in the text. But there were also some points where I just went, dude, that sentence started out really great, and then it just got so vague, or why are these people speaking so informally and casually to each other? Their relationship would say they need to be more formal with each other, and it just sort of like took me out of the story. This is a huge frustration for me because I do think that Zelazny is a great writer, and the Amber Chronicles are some of his most popular and enduring works. They're what he is known for, what people are going to pick up by him first, but I don't think that they give an accurate, favorable impression to new readers of what his writing talent is like. My theory, relatively unfounded because I haven't read that many other works by Zelazny, is that his strength lies in shorter stories, in novels, in short fiction, anywhere where he doesn't have to sustain a plot over multiple books. Other than the writing, the only other real negative point I have about the series is the Merlin Cycle. I think it's a popularly held opinion that the Merlin books are weaker than the Corwin stories, but I would disagree with a broad statement. I think the cast of characters was more interesting. I think the world building became more fleshed out. I think character motivations were better expanded upon, but Merlin is never as interesting as Corwin was. Even though you learn a lot about Merlin, his skills, his sorcery, his very interesting background in the Courts of Chaos, his time on Earth, I just never found him to have that thing that Corwin had. Maybe it's because Merlin wasn't infected with the Amber family paranoia. He wasn't as old, he was a bit more naive, but I never felt like he was entirely in charge of his own story. I was waiting for him to fail a lot of the times, whereas with Corwin, I just always expected Corwin was going to come out on top. And Merlin's personality was easily overshadowed by much more passionate, charismatic characters like Mander. So those are the things that I enjoy, the things that I didn't enjoy, and now I want to talk quickly about the thing that got better as the series progressed. This is the biggie. The female characters get better in the Merlin Cycle. This is a criticism I had and that I know other people had when reading the Corwin Cycle. I was bothered by Corwin's attitude towards women, that he seemed to fall into bed with every woman that came on screen, and that the sisters in the royal family of Amber were completely sidelined or blatantly disregarded in the political games. However, the Merlin Cycle has many, many more female characters that play very large, influential roles in the plot. In fact, I think you could probably trace back a ton of the major plot points to actions or decisions made by women, not men. Merlin does kiss or fall into bed with some of these women, which bothered me a little bit at first until I realized something that just made me laugh. Every time he does this, he is being used by the woman. He's being completely tricked. he is so blind. He gets all into this mode of like, ooh, pretty lady, let's go have dinner and have a good time. And he forgets that somebody is trying to kill him. And I don't know, he should be a little bit more suspicious of random women that come up to him and say, oh, let's go out to dinner and I might, do a little something for you. And then the reader can see it coming every time. He gets a little bit of nookie, and then he's completely abandoned. He's kind of left in the dust by this woman who has gotten what she wants, and he was just an idiot about the entire thing. I'm fully willing to accept and admit, though, that many readers might still find the depiction of women to be troublesome and to be bothered by how predictable and tedious Corwin and Merlin's love affairs are, because, yes, they are predictable and tedious. It's a plot device that it's overused so many times that, like me, I started laughing at it instead of being offended by it. And like I've already mentioned, I think the world building definitely got better in the Merlin cycle. There were just more complications thrown in. You just learn more details about things like the pattern and the logris and the new pattern, how these things interact. These elements, these entities become characters in their own right. And there's like more overt magic and spell casting, so you don't just have sword fights, you also have sorceress battles. It was more interesting, and I found myself also genuinely excited while reading the final book because there were some great payoffs and some long overdue explanations that I was very happy to see. So the final question, of course, is would I recommend the series, and would I recommend that people push through all 10 books? And you might be surprised because I really did like the series, but I have to say, for people who want to get into reading Zelazny for the first time, I would not recommend starting with the Chronicles of Amber because I just don't think that it is the best example of Zelazny at his best. It just isn't, by my opinion. Of course, it's my opinion. I would recommend that people start with This Immortal or Lord of Light. They are science fictional rather than being fantasy, but they both have, but especially This Immortal, they have like proto-Corwin characters that's kind of a good litmus test for whether you'd enjoy the character types in the Chronicles of Amber. They're both short, and I think that they both have better, just better writing. It shows you Zelazny at his best. Like many older classic SFF works, I liked the Chronicles of Amber more when I was a child, and I expect that people who would read this as adults now might also say that they would have liked it better when they were kids, back before we were exposed to a lot of the tropes and the stereotypes, back before we had fully formed expectations for the SFF genre. I will always like this series. I will always have a fondness for it, especially for the first and last books, which I think are probably the best in the series. As an adult, with a lot more reading experience under my belt, I can see the flaws, and it is always easier to pick out the flaws and the weaknesses rather than the strengths. But overall, yes, I like the series. I still like it to this day. I'm glad I reread it, and I will always be glad that I discovered the series as a child, and I loved it as a child because it has led me to read other works by Zelazny that I have immensely enjoyed as an adult. And that is what I thought about the Chronicles of Amber by Roger Zelazny. If you have read the series or anything else by Zelazny, I would love to hear from you. Please comment down below, and thank you for watching. I will be back again to talk at you in my next video. Bye.